Welcome to Cyborg 86. A couple of weeks ago, we chopped this body, added a sunroof, and a bed. This week, we're going to add an interior and a rocker panel. We will be using the bamboo slicer, and all the steps we use will also work in Orca slicer too. So don't worry if you don't have a bamboo. I understand Orca works very well with lots of other printers. Before we add an interior, we're going to have to clean up some of this nasty mess and make some room. I'm going to add a place for the battery on the side. While the Midget Chassis is designed to allow a forward battery with the ESC on the top, I'm going to move the ESC forward and put the battery on the side. This will leave lots of room for the interior. My shop assistant Miles is with me today and has already prepped the battery. You may have seen Miles around the shop, but he hasn't been introduced properly. This is Miles Robert Long. Think about that. Miles R. Long. That's right. He's named after a real person I knew in college. So Miles, if you're out there and you're watching, give me a shout. This one's for you, buddy. To add the battery mount on the side to the Midget Chassis, I jumped back into Fusion 360 where I originally designed it. I could have done the same thing in the slicer, and if you watched my original Suzuki video, you already know how I would have done it. For all of you Fusion 360 experts out there, please go easy on me. I'm just getting started. I'll just zip through this real quick because we're going to focus on changes we can make in the slicer again today. I've already removed the electronics. Now I'm going to replace the chassis rails, one side at a time. Now that's mostly done. Just a little bit of wire tucking to do, and we're all set. Now back into the slicer, we're going to add a new plate, and I've taken some measurements for the interior, so we're going to add a primitive object. I won't belabor this as I showed this in a prior video, but keep listening and you'll learn how to put some seats, a dash, and steering wheel in. A quick test print won't take much material, and I like to do that, and the test print looks pretty good. Now back to the slicer. I'm going to go import a file that I found and downloaded on Thingiverse. To do that, I chose File, Import STL, navigate to the file that I downloaded, in this case Racing Seat, and choose the option to import the STL. There it is. Now I'm going to add a new plate and move that seat over there where I can work with it. We won't have room for the entire seat, so I'm going to cut it. I'll use that cut symbol that I just clicked on, and then I need to rotate the cutting plane to straight up and down. As I move the cursor around, you'll see that there's some sizing information that shows up. I can use that to tell what size to cut the seat in order to fit inside the car. There's also an option checkbox to tell which part you want to keep and which part you want to delete. I'll show that again just so you can catch what I was saying. Now I'm going to move that part back over to the interior portion, and I'll angle the seat and sit it up and try to align it where I'd like it to go. I'll use this rotate icon to stand it up and then face it forward. Now I'll use the move icon to put it in place. It is sitting very straight up at this point, so I'm going to rotate it back about 15 degrees or so. Just lean it back like a regular car seat would. That's looking pretty good now. I kind of like how that's going. But since I've angled it like that, the bottom no longer sits flat and it may not go completely into the base of the interior. So I'm going to do one more cut to make sure it's flat on the bottom and sits nice. Plus, I've looked it over and decided that maybe it looked better a little shorter anyway, so I'm going to cut a little more than just the bottom. Now I'll just drag it back over and then I'll make a copy, and that'll be the passenger seat. You just do Control-C and Control-V, and that creates a new version, and then you can drag that new version into the right spot. There we go. And I fiddled around a little bit, found the steering wheel, but then I found a whole dash. So I decided I'd go get that instead. Let's go ahead and import that onto a new plate where we can work with that too. Well, there's way more than I want here. I just want the dash. Don't want those seats, don't want the stepped up interior. Just the dash. So let's go cut it to shreds. Same process as before, so I'll just do this and fast forward. Now that I've got most of it cut away, I've got a few parts left, so I'm going to use this icon to actually break those parts into separate STL meshes. Then I can delete them one at a time. It turned out that the dash and the steering wheel are actually two different parts in the original design, so when I went to move it, the steering wheel didn't come along. I'll show you here. So I moved it back into place and then hit undo so it would be lined up just where it was before. Then over on the left, you select both parts and click on the menu and it'll say merge. Choose merge and it'll put the parts together in one unit. Now we're cooking again. Let's move the dash over to the interior and start working with it on the sides. And let's get that old steering wheel out of the way. I like this one better. Now I'm going to resize that dash and keep it proportional. Now we just keep tweaking till it looks about right. Move it, size it. Looks like we're getting pretty close to printing. I'm going to go over on the left there and change the color. And I'm also going to merge these all as one unit. I'm actually going to print this in two colors. You can only do that if you have the AMS system or something similar. It'll automatically change colors for me. It's a nice to have, but certainly not required. I'm going to end up painting the gray anyway, so I could have just painted the whole thing one color, but that's what I did. After I printed it out, I painted the seats and the dash in a brown. I left the steering wheel gray. But what I really like is the base area that's not well detailed is in black. That just kind of makes it fade into the background. Like that quite a bit. The last thing I'll do in this stage is to go ahead and add the rocker panels. I just quick mocked it up in another plate, just like I always do. A couple of primitive objects, kind of eyeballed it, shaped it, scooched it around, and then when it looked pretty good, I printed it up. By the way, all that tippity-tappity noise you heard in the last couple clips was my dog Charlie, my other helper. He's pretty quiet in this photo, but his toenails get pretty noisy. Just glue it to the inside of the body and I'm all set. The glue holds really well to this PLA. And those parts are all done. I really like how that rocker panel covers up the area down below on the chassis. Just makes it look a little better. Maybe stands out a little funny because of the color, but I'm not going to complain. I like it better than the look of the chassis. Lots more videos and unique builds coming up on this channel. So if you haven't subscribed, now might be a good time. Happy crawling.